Hello YouTubers. You haven't seen me now for some time, but that's for some different reasons. First of all, I've been very busy working, but also I've had a bit of a, well, quite a heavy cold. You may still hear it on my voice that I sound a bit nasal, and that's the reason. Um, so I really haven't had the energy to make any videos, although I've been thinking a lot of different ideas for videos in the future. Um, Sublime Media, or Jonas as we know him, he made some videos some time ago when he let total randomness decide which records to listen to. So I thought that was a good idea, and I have one of these randomizer apps also in my iPad, and I decided to use that and to, well, just listen to whatever came up, and then maybe, well, think a bit about these records and maybe when I got them and my thoughts about them. The first record I picked was this colorful picture disc with the singer Harry Belafonte. You can see very colorful. Upside down. And this is Harry Belafonte's greatest hits. We have, well, his most famous tracks like Banana Boat Song, Coconut Woman, Jamaica Farewell, Mama Luca Boo Boo, Matilda, and many others. And I have to say, the reason why I bought this, and this was a purchase I made probably 25 years ago, 20 years ago at least. This is pressing from 1987. The reason why I bought it was mainly because it was, I thought it was beautiful, and it is. For some some years in the before I moved down south to Stockholm, I think I even had this on the wall. And of course, the songs here are great, and Harry Belafonte is a very good artist, and he was a lot on the television in Sweden. He was very popular in Sweden for many years in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And I remember in the 80s, even back then, he was quite often on Swedish television. So Swedish audience knew these songs, of course. But it is a picture disc, and you know, all of you, that they are mainly made to look at, not to listen at. So I listened to this, but it plays quite good, and it's fairly good condition, even though I kept it on the wall, as I said, for a couple of years. And I haven't listened to it for maybe 10 years. So it was a nice rediscovery. Although I have to say, I don't listen that much to Harry Belafonte, and I don't actively search for his records. And, well, that's quite good, because if you wanted to, you could buy as many Harry Belafonte records as, well, you can buy lots of them, because there are lots of them around, especially here in Sweden. And yeah. Next pick was another favorite of mine. Well, I wouldn't call Harry Belafonte a favorite of mine, but this is a favorite of mine. Elvis Costello, Punch the Clock, from 1983 on F-Beat. This is a Norwegian pressing, and even though I am a great fan of Elvis Costello, those of you who watched my countdown videos know that I rank him very highly. This is not one of my favorite albums with him. It's not bad. It is a very good album, but it's not among my favorites. But it was nice to have a reason to see it again and listening to it again. So yeah, Punch the Clock, Elvis Costello. Then we have this Canadian band, I think. Yeah, Canadian band, Edward Bear. And I don't remember really when I bought. I think I bought it in Solna for quite a cheap sum. They were in Capitol, they were Canadian. Maybe I thought it would sound a bit like the band. As a matter of fact, it doesn't. You shouldn't really compare it to that band, because it's okay, but it doesn't really. There's no wow for me in this, but it's not bad. But I have to say, when I had listened to it, I didn't really remember much what it had sounded like afterwards, and that's not a good sign. So, right, then we have another band called Walrus, and this is on the Janus label from 1972. The last album with Edward Bear is also from 1972, and I think this was Walrus' only album, American band. It was a bit the same as with the last one. It was okay, but it's not as interesting as I think it looks, although I have to say it's a rather boring looking sleeve. So, but I thought it sounded interesting. It's not that incredibly interesting, but it's not bad. It's one of these so-so albums. So I thought I was having a bit of bad luck there. But then, the next pick, one of the best live albums that I've heard, and I've heard many live albums, especially with this man, Bob Dylan, at Budokan in Japan, from 1978, I think. This is a Dutch issue. And he's in good form here. He has a good band with, well, Billy Cross on guitar, Ian Wallace on drums, David Mansfield on pedal steel and violin. So, I remember when this was reissued in the 1980s, there were lots of talk about this. This is the really great, the ultimate live album with Bob Dylan. I don't know if it is. It's one of the best ones, but I don't know if it is the ultimate one. I tend to like the one he did with the band a bit more. What's that called? Before the Flood? I think so. Right, Bob Dylan at Budokan. Then I was very happy about the next pick, because it's a artist that has meant a lot here in Sweden. It's the king of the buskers, Don Partridge, and this album is Columbia from 1968, and he had two hits from this album, Blue Eyes and Rosie. And those of you who are familiar with Don Partridge, you know that he was probably the most famous busker in England, and he led a kind of busker movement in the 60s and 70s. And he returned to busking many times, and that was obviously his favorite way of performing to an audience. Also, he has changed a law here in Sweden, because you aren't allowed to busk in Sweden. You can't really imagine that today when you see buskers all over the place. But the law was changed, and I think the law got its name after. I'm not sure about this. I think I've read it somewhere, that it's called Lex Partridge. So, whenever you see a really good busker here in Sweden, or hear a really good busker here in Sweden, you can thank Don Partridge. But whenever you hear a really bad one, you can blame him. Anyway, this is a great album from 1968. I have a couple of copies, because none of them are in perfect condition, and I can't really decide which I think is good until I find a really, really great copy. But this is a popular record here, and it sold well. You keep finding it quite often, although they're often loved and played quite hardly, quite a lot. So they are definitely the best of condition, so to speak. Right. The last one that I picked in this listening to random records has also a Swedish connection. It's Johnny Cash at på Österåker. And that was another record in the long series of different jail live, prison live concerts. We have, of course, the most famous ones in San Quentin and Folsom Prison. And this one was made in 1972 in Sweden, where we have the normal Tennessee 3 with W.S. Holland, Marshall Grant, Bob Wooten, and also Carl Perkins on guitar. And it's a great live album, and I think one of the most interesting things is hearing him speak Swedish, and doing quite good. I mean, we can understand what he says, even if he maybe don't understand that much of what he's saying. This copy was bought up in Luleå, and it has been owned by the local radio station because it has the kind of sticker here, but it's in great condition, so no problem playing it. So yeah, so that was some random picks from my record collection. Bye for now.